allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we are going to be bouncing around the agenda a little bit today, but we will start off with if there's any comments from the public. Start off with that with item 2. Seeing none. Moving on to item number 3, corrections to the agenda or consent calendar.
So yes, do you want me to announce the changes?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So on the agenda, what we're going to do, as President Ramos mentioned, we're going to bounce around a little bit. We're going to adopt the consent calendar, which is item number 4, and then we are going to go to item number 9, staff attorney reports. Then we're going to go to item 10, general manager report, back up to 7, standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports from the board, 8, the board member reports, and then from there, we'll see if we're ready logistically to move on to action items.
Maybe do 16 in the meantime. Yeah. Okay. All right. So very good. Thank you. Do we have a motion for the adoption of the consent calendar?
I'll move adoption.
I'll second.
We'll do it concurrently.
Yeah.
Okay, and so nothing has moved on for item 5. We're moving on to item 9. Staff attorney reports, 9A, state of groundwater basin. All right, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mark Silos, Water Resources Manager. Can you guys see? Here it is.
Yeah, the projector's on.
Can I? Yeah, maybe. Not that one.
Yeah.
Blinded by the light. I know you want to see this presentation, but like not literally.
Not
Not through my eyeballs.
You don't want it smeared.
Yeah.
And then I can see.
I can just move over. Just like practicing my
I
office.
mean, we can see it on the screen here, but it's also on that. So.
Go. Thank you. All right.
Here we go. All right, so this is our highly anticipated and illustrious annual State of the Groundwater Basin update that I give you guys every year. And so I'm just going to go through just a little brief refresher on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I'll go over our groundwater supply and demand for this previous water year. I'll go over some of our basin management objectives that are covered in our groundwater sustainability plan, our accomplishments for this year, and then I have some good updates on the future management of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And so, yeah, as you may remember, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, was passed in 2014. It's a California act that kind of aimed to address the historic drought that was going on at the time. And kind of the goal was to achieve sustainability through local control. And so the act established these groundwater sustainability agencies. We, in partnership with El Dorado County Water Agency, are the groundwater sustainability agency for our basin that we manage. And then the groundwater sustainability agencies put together groundwater sustainability plans to establish objectives that basically allow us to keep our aquifer in healthy condition and to avoid over-extraction. And so the main things that SGMA kind of aim to do are kind of address these. These are called the 6 deadly sins of SGMA. And so lowering groundwater levels, reduction of storage. We don't really worry about seawater intrusion up here. Degraded water quality, land subsidence, and surface water depletion. So these are all things that we monitor and assess as part of our annual assessment for our annual reports. And so, yeah, this slide here just shows our Tahoe Valley South subbasin here. And there are 3 major aquifers that are in the Lake Tahoe Basin. You can see the really small north and west aquifers, and we are thankful to have this relatively large aquifer down here in the south. Relatively large, I say, because it's still on the smaller side for a groundwater basin. Like the entire Central Valley of California is a big groundwater basin. And so, yeah, when I talk about the subbasin, that's the area I'm talking about. We separate it into these kind of operational areas that you see on the right, but they're all connected. Water can flow between all of them. And so we assess our water year based on precipitation at Hagen's Meadow, which is up by Armstrong Pass. And we kind of use the snow total for that year, or the snow water equivalent, to determine what type of water year we have. We have kind of like a statistical method that we use to compare it to other years. And water year 2025, which went from October 2024 to September 2025, was considered a normal year. That follows a normal year and a very wet water year. So keep that in mind when I go over kind of the groundwater recharge and the storage that we have. And so this plot here, these are model results. So we have this big 3D hydrogeologic model that we use, and it has inputs, right, which are like precipitation, groundwater recharge. It has outputs, which are our pumping, and then also flow into the lake, because that's where all of our groundwater ends up. And if we update those boundary conditions that we know, then we can calculate how much groundwater recharge we got, how much we have in storage, things like that. And so this plot here is showing estimated groundwater recharge over time. And our groundwater recharge here kind of has 2 main components. There is what's called the aerial recharge, which is when precipitation falls directly onto the area of the subbasin and it percolates in. And then there's also mountain block recharge, which is where we have snow melt from the mountains and it kind of enters on the boundaries. And that mountain block recharge makes up the majority of our recharge that we get. And it's also very consistent. So you can see like this blue over time. That's relatively unchanging, whereas the aerial recharge is kind of going up and down, and it's corresponding more to the water year type that we have. And so, yeah, we have a monitoring network of about 40 groundwater monitoring wells, and we monitor these twice annually in October and May, and that's kind of supposed to represent the seasonal lowest water levels and then the seasonal highest after all the snow melts, but before we start pumping a lot. And so we put together this plot here that basically what it shows is how high or low groundwater levels are in this year compared to previous years. And so if you look at the kind of pinkish purple one that's like in the middle, that's spring 2025. And if you look at the plot, you can see 0 intersects 0.25 on the y-axis. And so that means that about 75% of our groundwater wells are above their historic median level. So yeah, we have really nice high groundwater levels right now, even after 2 years of normal water years. And then also, yeah, we looked at like, we have a model that we use where we can look on a well-by-well basis to see if we have increasing or decreasing water levels in our wells. And 96% of our wells are either remaining constant in water level or increasing. So yeah, we don't really have any issues with like declining water levels or anything like that. This shows like a couple of measurements, what they look like, measurements from actual wells. So you can see it kind of goes up and down, up and down. Higher is usually spring, lower is usually fall. And we kind of see this trend of seasonal increase and decrease, but you can see that all of these wells are basically remaining constant or increasing. And that's basically what we see when we look at most of the wells in our system. So this plot shows groundwater extraction. The district's extraction is shown in this kind of like light blue color. And then we have the other major water purveyors, Lucan's Brothers, which is kind of in red, and then Tahoe Keys, which is in green. The purple bar shows total community water system well production. And you can see that in 2025, our production was pretty far below the average. The average is 7,440 acre-feet per year. And then what we saw this year was 5,971, so significantly below average production. This plot here shows all of the major wells that we use to pump groundwater in our system and also in the other small community water systems. The size of the well is proportional to the amount of water produced that year. And you can see that most of our water is coming from kind of the area near the lake. And there's some smaller sources up gradient in Myers. That big dot there is Bakersfield well. And then this also kind of breaks down our consumption data. It's showing consumption by use type. And all of those losses there represent any non-revenue water, so that's not necessarily like loss from leaking. It could be like from flushing or things, any kind of water isn't metered. But you can see our district losses are about 16%, which is consistent with what we've recorded in our water loss audits in previous years. All right. So we can also look at groundwater and storage. So this is also model results here. And it's basically showing our groundwater supply, and you can see that it's kind of increased over time. We actually had a decrease in groundwater supply this year by 795 acre-feet, but we still have over 46,000 acre-feet available for storage. And I mentioned the average is around 7,500 acre-feet. So we have over 6 years of pumping capacity just in storage, and that's not considering like recharge that we'll get next year. So overall, yeah, our basin is in a really good shape, and our main challenges obviously come from like maintaining our system operational, keeping our wells online, making sure we have adequate pressures and flows where we need them, things like that. And obviously, we have the challenge of trying to site wells around areas of known contamination. There's the South Y PCE plume, there's arsenic in Myers, things like that. But from like a pure supply perspective, our groundwater basin is in really good shape. And so, yeah, this slide shows our basin management objectives. These are things that we report on every year in our annual report to the Department of Water Resources. Yeah, you can see that we're either meeting thresholds or we're in progress to meeting thresholds for all of those categories. We had some major accomplishments in 2025. We met all of our monitoring requirements. Thank you to our lab for doing the twice annual groundwater monitoring and then reporting those to the state. We completed our annual modeling run, of which the results I presented in this presentation are from. And then we met our DWR reporting requirements. We submitted that 2025 annual report. And we also made some progress with our groundwater model update, and we completed a groundwater dependent ecosystem monitoring plan with DRI, Desert Research Institute, and that'll be incorporated into the next update for our groundwater sustainability plan, which is due in 2027. And then a major accomplishment, I would say, is that, so last time, or last year when I gave this presentation, we were talking about our efforts to get downgraded as a groundwater basin from medium priority to very low priority. This is how we were actually initially rated, and these very low priority basins don't have to do any of the compliance work that I'm reporting on for Sigma. But we ended up being included in this because we kind of pointed out the issues with PCE, because kind of at the time we thought that it would open up funding opportunities for addressing that. That didn't end up penciling out, and now we're kind of stuck with all of this somewhat extraneous reporting, these reporting activities. And so we're still hoping to eventually get downgraded to very low priority. But in the meanwhile, we've been working with El Dorado County Water Agency and they've graciously agreed to take over the management of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency for us. And I think this is a really good deal for us because this kind of allows us to focus on our core mission of delivering, safe water, drinking water, and wastewater treatment and export. And El Dorado County Water Agency is really much better suited for these sorts of like large-scale planning, watershed-scale compliance programs. And so I met with them last week to discuss the handoff, and we're going to start working on that. We are probably going to be working pretty closely with them for the transition phase. But kind of the goal is that eventually we just become an individual contributor to the groundwater sustainability plan in the same way that Lukens is for us. And so we're fulfilling data requests, we're providing a review of the report, we're giving technical expertise, things like that. But we wouldn't be responsible for actually like for example, the update, the 5-year update is due 2027, and that's going to be a major hurdle that would take away a lot of staff time for implementing our capital improvement program. And so that's going to free up some staff time to do that. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good deal for us from an efficiency standpoint, but also financially. We'll still be doing a 50-50 cost share with them on that. But most groundwater sustainability agencies are actually funded in proportion to the extraction amount. And we extract much, much more than 50% of the groundwater that's extracted from our basin. So it's a good deal for us. And so, yeah, there's a couple kind of administrative things that we need to do, and we're going to work on kind of developing a plan with El Dorado County Water Agency for that. We have a couple of resolutions that have kind of established our different roles as the groundwater sustainability agencies. We'll need to update those, so I'll probably be back with you guys soon for that. And then we also have an existing memorandum of understanding with El Dorado County Water Agency that kind of establishes our roles, and so we'll need to update that. But yeah, we're working on that, and like I said, the goal of El Dorado County is to still achieve this downgrade to low priority. And so, yeah, but yeah, I would mention, we're going to maintain our network of monitoring wells. We're going to keep monitoring, make sure that we're not causing any negative effects on the aquifer, making sure that our wells aren't affecting other wells. And so, yeah, we're still going to keep a close eye on our groundwater basin, but it's going to be more kind of curated to our needs and our management requirements as opposed to, something that's kind of designed for critically overdrafted aquifers like in the Central Valley or other places in the state. So, yeah, so that's what's going on with that. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? You came in halfway through. Are you here for the rest of the afternoon?
I am, yeah. Okay. You can go first, actually.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, mine. Is there any downside that we're just not considering? I mean, my assumption is not based on what as you outlined, the portions I heard, but just to make sure we touch base on that.
Yeah, I don't really see a downside. Like the one critique of potentially us stepping down is so I mentioned, actually I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the presentation, but the whole idea behind SGMA is that is supporting local control, right? And so, as a major stakeholder in use of the aquifer, there's some benefit to us, having control over the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. But that said, El Dorado County Water Agency has been a really good partner to us with groundwater management, and they're still going to be relying on us for that kind of expertise and contribution, but it'll eliminate the administrative burden. So I still think that we'll be able to, we won't be, brushed over in any decisions that need to be made. We'll still be a major stakeholder, but we just won't have to be the one coordinating all that. So.
Well, that's to your point. It seemed like a terrific way. So just what am I not thinking about?
Yeah.
I think where there possibly could have been a downside is if we would have said, we don't want to do it anymore, and the water agency said, we're not going to do it either, and then the state stepped in and said, okay, we'll do it. That could have been a downside.
Or if some other agency started and then, yeah, and we had no existing relationship with them and things like that. But yeah, no, I kind of see it as a win-win. It lets El Dorado County Water Agency do what they're good at, and it lets us do what our mission is. So.
Can you click back to that slide with the objectives that were on there? I was just curious about some of them. So I guess like number 3, like what does that mean, collaborative relationships? I guess I don't have a good notion of what.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say that this groundwater sustainability plan was designed to be achieved. So there are certain plans.
Soft goals there?
Yeah, soft goals. So, you know, there are certain regulatory requirements that are cut and dry, and there are others where it's like, okay, we need to be in compliance with this, and we need to show that we can achieve this. And I think this was really the latter. And like even a lot of our basin management objectives, like the thresholds are designed to be achieved. So like, for example, there's one that's like under the sustainable long-term groundwater supply that's like based on like long-term declines in water level. And the indicator for it is our existing pumping capacity, right? So if we lose a well, then maybe we're not in compliance. But the issue is that we could just drill another well. We could still have declining groundwater levels and just keep drilling more wells and meet the indicator. And so it wasn't very useful for us as a management tool, which is like why I think it's better for us to kind of do our own thing and operate using our own plan that meets our needs better. Yeah, I think like a lot of this is designed to be attained. So like the strengthening collaborative relationships, that's like maintaining a stakeholder advisory, or actually we had that one there. But we like maintain a stakeholder advisory group with a bunch of different stakeholders from like Lahontan and El Dorado County and the city and all kinds of different organizations. And we meet as needed, which isn't very much these days. And then, yeah, obviously like identifying and obtaining funding. You know, how do you know when you've met that? You get funding, we haven't, we're still trying. And so, yeah, I would say that like none of these are like, especially these soft basin management objectives, they're not something that like the state would step in and say, oh, you guys didn't get a grant, so you're not in compliance anymore. And yeah, they're looking more at like these like number 1, number 2 during their reviews, which, as I mentioned before, even those are designed to be attained. So,
yeah. Quick question. In terms of groundwater quality protection from a land use perspective, what does that consist of? Like, what would you consider from a land use perspective?
Yeah.
Groundwater quality?
There would be a couple things. So like the main one that comes up here is like infiltration basins that are near groundwater wells. We've seen some impacts from those. It's something that actually came up in the El Dorado County plenary that they put on that was here like a few months ago. And so just making sure that we're being engaged in any projects that are going to be building those, especially if they're near our wells. Also as a GSA, we've had increased involvement in groundwater well permitting now because there was an executive order N722 that kind of made it so wells of a certain size now have to go through the GSA and not just the county for approval. And so we were kind of involved in those, but they really don't come up very often. And then, yeah, also just kind of using the stakeholder advisory group to kind of stay engaged in other projects that might affect our groundwater. So like any kinds of like restoration projects or even like development projects that would increase impermeable surfaces and things like that. So yeah, and that's something like we still want to stay involved in those, but as a member of the stakeholder advisory group as opposed to the originator.
Yeah, and I think you just, SCPD through plan review and multiple stakeholder engagements, I think always has a seat at that table.
Yeah.
Cool, no, thank you.
Yeah, I guess nothing else. It just seems kind of vague, and just seems like some of these things could be easily clicked off. You know, if we just establish a stakeholder advisory group,
Yeah.
It's a standing group that we, bring together whenever. And I guess my assumption is that as El Dorado County Water Agency takes this on, then that means that this all kind of goes with it.
Yeah. And so that's something we've actually been talking about. It's like, let's make these, and that was actually a major topic of this meeting that I had last week with them. And it was like, hey, we have these like not very useful basin management objectives that are designed to be attained. And they're nonsensical for this and that reason. And so let's try to actually like create something that is going to serve a valuable management purpose. And so, yeah, we still want to be involved in development of those. But obviously we don't want them to be so cumbersome that like we'll have a dry year and then we'll start exceeding, right? So yeah, we'll still have a seat at the table for those. So.
I guess it was also a little bit of a surprise to hear that some of those sedimentation basins are basically impacting our groundwater, and I guess I thought that they might actually be the source of recharge, but.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the kind of water that they're recharging. Typically not all that good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? No? Any questions from the public? You're good?
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we can go back to our normal schedule.
Well, I was going to recommend, since we had already started with the staff reports, Shelley has a very short one.
Okay.
That she's going to give, and then my GM report is very short too, so we can finish those and then go.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Whoa. Presentation. Oh, that's awesome.
So, that's a big check.
One thing at a time.
So last week, Congressman Kiley came to the district and presented us with this $1.2 million check for Park Avenue, which is very exciting. So this is a community-funded project request that Congress gets to pick specific projects in their region to move forward. So very proud of the district for securing these funds. Just a reminder, the Park Avenue Waterline project is Park Avenue is over by State Line, kind of across from Heavenly Village, and it currently will be replacing 1,500 linear feet of 2- and 6-inch water lines with 8- and 12-inch water lines, and installing new hydrants. So it will absolutely help with fire flows, water reliability, and for our water crew, they are out there all the time fixing that old line. So they are very excited to have a new water line going into place. So Congressman Kiley came and presented us with this check, and huge thank you to his leadership as well as Senator Padilla and Senator Schiff for supporting this project funding. And, you know, we don't do anything in a silo. We received letters of support from the city of South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County, El Dorado Water Agency, as well as Team Tahoe. So very excited about that project. Any questions?
What are you holding in the photo?
My pipe.
I was like, I didn't
brought
know.
my other visual. I gave you a scepter.
That's what I thought too, and I was like, big
secret club now.
I didn't know what's going on.
You guys haven't seen the pipe?
Then
I saw the pipe.
So
I knew.
I should have brought it. It's in my office. Congressman Kiley's staffer, every time he sees me, I'm holding this pipe. On the inside, you see it's a old 2-inch steel water line that is usually what we are digging up. And on the outside, you get to see the water line that we're replacing with. It's just a really good visual. All of our infrastructure is underneath the ground. So when we talk about upsizing pipes and we talk about adding fire hydrants to this small 2-inch water line, it gives folks a sense of that doesn't really help with fire flow in our community. So, yeah, oh, Nick, I'm so happy you asked about my pipe. I bring it everywhere with me.
In reality, I was like, Jim Jones would have been very proud.
He would have. He would have loved it. Awesome. I'm heading down to SAC next week with California Tahoe Alliance to meet with a lot of state senators and assembly members, talking about water for fire infrastructure as well as some of our agency partners' priorities, and then heading to D.C. with North Tahoe and Tahoe City PUD the week of April 20th to meet with our federal delegation to try to keep bringing in more money.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay.
You're going to do mine real quick.
Okay.
So I just have a couple of things real quick. First, I reported out on the UCC meeting yesterday, so Joel heard it, but I wanted to give the rest of you an update. I believe we talked about it a little bit at this meeting already, the very large project that's being proposed to redevelop the Tahoe Keys Marina area. It is very big. It's million and a very aggressive construction date because they're assuming it will be done by the end of 2027. We'll see. It's going to include multiple restaurants, commercial space, very large boat barn, and from the renderings that we've seen here, the developer brought over for us to look at, looks like it could be very similar to like what's out at Ski Run Marina. We have had a few, what I would call preliminary meetings with the developer, and I say that because the marina is in the Tahoe water service area, so, you know, they have first crack at serving this customer. So we've been waiting for Tahoe to decide if they intend to provide the water or not for that development. And last week they verbally told us that they would prefer us to take on that customer because it's just kind of really too big for them. So once we receive a letter from Tahoe stating that, then we'll open up more discussions with the developer at that time. And also, we still need to see actual plans submitted for the project, and that hasn't been submitted yet. One thing that's important is they do know that we do not have a transmission line that runs to that property since that's not our area, and so they will have to pay to have a mainline extension from where our line ends, which is at Tahoe Boulevard and Michael Drive, from that point all the way down to the marina, and probably about 3/4 of a mile or so. So it could be about $2 million for them to put that in. And based also on preliminary water need numbers that they've provided to us, we do believe that they'll need to construct at least one large storage tank on that property to meet their fire flood needs. So then more to come on that as we continue to have meetings with them, and we'll provide some additional updates. The only other thing I have is I am going to be out of the office next week. I'm taking a few days off to go to New Orleans, and in my absence, Shelley is going to be acting general manager. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I can now move to 6A. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Moving on to item 6A, 2026 State Line Tanks Recoding Project. Brent, there it is.
Good afternoon. I'm Golgoski, Senior Engineer, talking about the 2026 State Line Tanks Recoding Project. So we just opened bids a couple weeks ago on this. Very clean bid process, kind of boring actually. We received 8 bids. We had about 15 contractors at the pre-bid conference that we held. 8 bids ranging from just over $2 million to just under $3 million. The low bid was about 12% under the engineer's estimate, and about 6% under the number 2 bid. The low bidder is, get the whole name right, United Field Services Corporation. They've done work for us in the past. They just did a Garden Mountain tanks last summer, and they've done a tank touch-up project before that without any issues. So we're excited to work with them again. This is going to be, these are our 2 largest tanks in our system. It's about 1.25 million and 2.25 million gallons. These are State Line tanks down there by the gondola. You can see them from the gondola and see how rough shape they're in. So we're excited to get them rehabbed. We're going to do the 1 million gallon tank this summer, and then the 2 million gallon next summer, all under one contract. So that'll keep things pretty seamless out there. Any questions?
Down the row here. Do we anticipate any? I'm already thinking about some of the budget adjustments that might be forthcoming with a low bid.
This one was in pretty good shape. It was just about $200,000 under our engineer's estimate, which I think is right where we've got currently in the 10-year plan. So we're in good shape on the budget. Yeah, I think there was some shuffling of tanks last year. So it looks like there's not money this year because we used that money for Gardner last year, but then that money that was going to be for Gardner.
I guess I was just concerned about the contractor coming in and looking for
change orders. Change orders, et cetera.
So I worked with this contractor before, and we've learned our lesson with this tank asset management program over the last few years. We're kind of eliminating a lot of the tank touch-ups, which is what was driving some of the change orders, because they would come in a few years after we had done a condition assessment and some more damage had happened, and so that was what was driving the change orders. These are both full recoding projects. We also did a condition assessment on the structural steel before we bid this because they have been in some rough shape on the roof structures, and that structural analysis showed that we still have enough structural strength in the steel, and so we're not anticipating any kind of major repairs or anything. So I think with this, doing the full recoating, the structural, we're going to keep a clean bid and very minor change orders. So, yeah.
Sorry for the wrong terminology, but yeah.
No, you're fine.
You know what I'm thinking.
It does not look like Luther.
Okay. Okay.
But me, my face, and a tank. I know we think Luther. It was a good time, but yeah, we made sure that we got the good condition assessment like just last year, so we're feeling pretty confident that we'll get in there.
Okay. No more questions from the board? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Saying none, what would you like us to consider?
All right, 3 actions. The first one, to adopt the addenda to the design plans and specifications pursuant to California Government Code Section 830.6. The second action, to find minor irregularities in the bid from Unified Field Services Corporation to be immaterial and waive immaterial irregularities. And third action, to award the contract for the 2026 State Line Tanks Recoating Project to the lowest responsible bidder, Unified Field Services Corporation, in the amount of $2,964,000.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Thank you, Brett. Okay, moving on to item 6B, 2026 Advanced Metering Infrastructure Water Meter Installation Project. Laura. Very descriptive.
Good afternoon, Laura Henderson, Associate Engineer. I'm here to talk about the last phase of the metering project for the district. So California passed an assembly bill that required all urban water suppliers to install meters on all of our service connections. We've previously completed 6 phases of this project. This will be the 7th phase, where we're installing 72 meters, a lot of them in that Loop Road area. We were avoiding that area when we thought they were going to be rerouting the road, and then just kind of other ones that have gotten missed throughout the years. One important thing for this project is that with all of the previous 6 phases, we've utilized census meters, which is a specific meter. Our staff is very comfortable with them. Our inspectors are all used to them, underground water, everything like that. So for this final phase, district staff recommends that the board find census meters as the sole brand allowable meter to match equipment already in use throughout the district water system. This is permitted under Public Contract Code Section 3400C for you guys. The project is also partially funded by a Bureau of Reclamation grant. They're doing a 50% match. Right now, their total is $483,437. We do plan to advertise bids on March 27th and then be back for award on May 21st of this year. Do you guys have any questions?
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road for Trevor. So. Yeah. I only have to do 72 of them.
Laura, I just want to make sure, did you want to eliminate the document?
Oh, yes. We are still working on finalizing the plans and specs, so we will not be asking you today to adopt the plans and specs. We'll be bringing that back as an item when we want to award the project.
Okay. I guess there's no more comments or questions from the board. Are there any comments or questions from the public? I'm seeing none. What would you like us to consider as amended?
I'd like you to find census meters as the sole brand per Public Contracting Code Section 3400C Reason 2, and authorize district staff to advertise for construction bids for the 2026 AMI water meter installation project.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Are you up again?
Yep.
You are? Oh, okay. 6C, 2026 Facilities HVAC Upgrades. Laura.
Again, Laura Henderson, Associate Engineer. There's 3 buildings on the wastewater treatment plant property
that still have their original HVAC equipment, and it's become increasingly difficult for our heavy maintenance crews to maintain and operate those. So it's the biosolids building out in the wastewater treatment plant, the operations and lab building, and then this building that we're in right now. There's 2 chillers outside for this building and the ops building. Those use R22 refrigerant, which is now no longer being made because it's one of the most hazardous refrigerants. We can no longer get that. One of the boilers in the ops building is no longer functioning, so they have no redundancy for heat and kind of keeping the lab at a stable temperature for everyone that works in there. And then in the biosolids building, the temperature controls and air control system, we can no longer control the temperature in there. So, yeah, some kind of major issues that we're seeing all throughout the plant that our heavy maintenance staff brought to us. So we put out a request for proposals, an RFP, to kind of do an entire analysis of all 3 of the buildings, do a risk analysis, a conditions assessment, everything like that. We did get one proposal from a company called Integrated Project Solutions. We received the proposal and determined that the firm does have a lot of relevant experience. They've done a lot of HVAC upgrades and upgrades in other wastewater treatment plants and hospitals where the hospital had to stay online the whole time without any interruption to activity or anything like that. So we would like to move forward with them to create the alternatives analysis. They're willing to do the full design, help us through the whole construction process, even all the way through as-built documents for us. So their proposal was for a total not to exceed $113,650, and then additionally an extra $15,000 for any kind of as-needed services as they're going through, just because we don't really know a lot about the equipment that is here. So kind of wanted to add in a little buffer for them in case we run into something minor that we'd also like them to look at. So the completion of the evaluation and design effort will help us kind of map a clear path forward of what we'd like to replace now, if anything can wait a few years, if there are some quick fixes, kind of getting the whole picture of that. So hopefully we'll be moving forward with IPS on this design and then come back to you in a few months to advertise for bids for construction later in the fall. You have any questions?
I'm sorry, I missed it. I guess I thought this was climatic.
No questions for me. Yeah, hopefully when this is all done, the what was the phrasing you would use? The poisonous? What was it? I'm trying to recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully will be removed.
Yeah. Yeah, the refrigerant and the chillers out there. It's not getting out right now, but they just don't really sell it anymore. They're not making any more of it, so there's a finite quantity left in the world.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, what would you like us to consider?
Number 1, approve the proposed scope of work by Integrated Project Solutions for the 2026 Facilities HVAC Upgrades Project. And number 2, authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement and task order number 1 with Integrated Project Solutions in the amount of $128,650.
I'll make a motion.
We'll second.
Thank you.
Laura. All right. Next up is item 6D, liability claim against South Tahoe Public Utility Districts received from Charter Communications. Ryan.
Good afternoon, Ryan Lee, Customer Service Manager. I'm here to talk to you about a liability claim that we received from Charter Communications related to a project that our underground water crew completed last summer. I'll give you a little bit of background on the work that we did out there and then review the JPIA's recommendation that the district reject this claim. So the work that we did was out in the county. We did this in July of 2025. So last summer, our underground water crew went out to Player Court to install a blow-off at the end of that line in the court there. And during that excavation to install the blow-off line, we hit a buried cable line. And so that's kind of what's what's being discussed in this claim is that Charter alleges that when we called in our digs ticket to delineate the area that we were going to be working in, that we dug outside of that area, and that's where this utility conflict occurred. So we did a little bit of research, and the records that we have indicate that we were within the area that we laid out. So I'll tell you a little bit about how this works. So anytime we excavate, and anytime really anybody digs in this area, we're required to call 811. It's a phone number put together by USA North. And what they do is they ask you where you're going to be digging. You actually mark it out in the street in white paint so that the area is clear. You draw a little polygon when you submit the ticket online, and they ask you a bunch of questions on how you're excavating, whether you're using, explosives, backhoe, things like that. And so we do this routinely, and the way that we do our markings is very consistent, and all of the locators around here are used to it. And so once we put in one of those tickets, all of the utilities are notified, and they have 2 business days, 48 hours, to go out and mark any of their utilities that are in that work area so that we know where they are and we can avoid hitting those. If we do see any markings, our crews always hand dig around those until we can locate those lines and make sure that we're digging safely. And we have a really good record of, not hitting a lot of things. Our crew's very fastidious about how they put in these markings. So in this case, the Charter claim, they sent in a report from UtiliQuest, which is the locating company that Charter uses to mark out the cable lines. And I attached that because it was part of the claim. So there were some interesting things. Basically, what they're alleging is that the point where we hit that buried cable conduit was 50 feet outside of the area that we had delineated on the ground with our white paint. So we actually went back out into the field. So Frank, our underground water supervisor, went out just last week, and the marks that we put down last July were actually still visible. So we took some pictures. He measured out everything with a tape measure based on the marks that are out there, and the blow-off that we installed is well within the area that we've marked out. And it's interesting. I have some pictures from the field I can show you that might make it easier to see what we're talking about if you're interested in that.
Are these the ones in the, okay.
No, there are some additional ones that we just got after that that make it a little bit easier to see what we're talking about. So I'll give you, let's see here, just a little bit of context. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is from Player Drive looking down Player Court, and our blow-off is kind of over here. So I'll show you some pictures of that. So let's see, looking up Player Court, the blow-off's kind of over in this area, so this is looking back toward Player Drive. But let me show you some of the pictures that Frank took out there. So this is the mark that's still available. So it's still available, or it's still out there. It's completely legible. And you can see that this is that house here at the end of the court, and then this green thing over here is the blow-off that we installed. So it's really near that house there, and these cones represent the area that Frank measured out based on the marks. We basically said, it goes 250 feet this way, 30 feet over this way. So they actually took a tape measure and measured that based on our markings that were still there, and then put those cones out there. This hole is where the actual cable line was hit, and so you can see this green thing is the new blow-off that we installed. And so if you look at the UtiliQuest report that they submitted with their claim, it's kind of interesting because the place where they marked the damage point, what they're calling, let's see here. So this is an interesting one. So this blue polygon is what they're saying. Oops. I'm going to be a little picky, but we can do this with another. I was prepared for that. Okay, so here's another version of that. So you can see this blue polygon indicates what they're saying is the dig area that we marked out, and we're not disputing that, but the damage point that they show is way over here. And as you can see from those photos, it really is right over here in this area. And so I'm not quite sure where this discrepancy came from between their field investigation and what we found, but we were able to go out there and really confirm that our marks were good, which is what our records showed, and our notes from the day when that collision occurred. Here you can see it again. This is their cable infrastructure, and they're really saying the damage point is over here, but the blow-off is really over here.
the lines that are shown there, that's their cable?
Yeah, so those blue lines are their cable, and so that's where they've marked that we hit what they're calling a feeder line, and it kind of loops around that court. But it's interesting, like they didn't mark it. So that was the key here, is that when they responded to the DIGS ticket, you have to have what they call a positive response. So even if you have no conflicts, you have to then reply as a utility and say that you have no conflicts, you've looked at the ticket. And so they did that. And so once they do that, we assume that they've marked anything that's out there. And they had marked some other stuff. So they marked some stuff on this other side of the court. And so originally, Frank's crew was planning to put that thing on the other side of the court. But when we saw that there were no markings on the far side, which was kind of more open, it's on the CTC lot there, we decided to relocate it there, and it was still within the dig area. So I let Charter know, or the company, the loss control company that they're working with who submitted this claim, I did reach out to them with this additional information. I sent them all those photos and described what we found out in the field, and they responded and said that they had, they're looking into that, and I let them know, please let me know if you have any additional documentation to submit for the claim, or if you want to make a statement to the board, let me know. I haven't heard back from them, and so that was about a week and a half ago. And so I'm assuming that they're not contesting this, because I asked her to let me know as soon as possible if they have any additional information. But I also let her know that the recommendation would be coming to our board to reject the claim. And that is the recommendation of the JPIA, who provides our liability insurance. So they've reviewed this claim along with the documentation that we have, that they're recommending that we reject it. So just to remind the board, it's been a little bit of time since we've had one of these claims rejected. How this works is that if the district votes to reject the claim, then we will notify the claimant. They have a 6-month period during which they can sue us if they want to. With government agencies like the district, people are required to submit a claim to us before they can sue us. So they'd have that 6 months, and if they do file suit, then the JPIA will defend the district because it was their recommendation to reject this. They've reviewed it. So we won't really be involved in it. They will defend us if that happens. It's only happened once, but they held up their end of the bargain and defended us through the entire lawsuit.
So it sounds like the issue really was whoever went out and tried to identify the utilities, they just didn't do a good job marking those things, and you went ahead and did the work, and what do you know?
That's what it looks like. Is that I don't know if they misinterpreted the marks or something like that, but again, we confirmed that the way that we did the markings are completely consistent with the way that we do it every day, and it's these same locators that are used to seeing our marks, and we've never really had an issue like this. It's just interesting to see where they put the damage point and how far away it is from where we actually installed that thing.
Yeah, not familiar with the area. I mean, or maybe, I don't know if you pulled on the cable.
That's what I was thinking too, yeah. If they caught it and pulled it, it could have stretched and broke something there. That was my...
Could be. That's another possibility. But there was actually, we cut that thing and pulled it out of the ground, excavating with a backhoe there. But yeah, it could have broken something over there as well.
Yeah, that's within reason of tugging on it and breaking something, but...
Yeah, but again, like the point that we actually hit it was not located by them, so they had no indication out there that there was cable where we actually.
That's the big thing is that they didn't report it on the USA.
Right. Frank, did you want to say anything? Come on up. I mean, I guess one of my questions is, this is the work that we did as staff. This was our digging, or was it Vince Guerra? Or I guess I wanted to clarify that.
Yes, that was us. And good afternoon, everyone. Yes, that was us who did it.
I figured we'd get you to the podium since you came to the board meeting.
Thanks for having me. So there were no marks on the left facing the cul-de-sac to the left-hand side. So we were going to put it to the right-hand side. We saw no marks on the left-hand side, so we decided the main is on the right-hand side. We dug it to find our main, and then we shot a mole about 60 feet underground, and then we dug a little bell hole to install it, and that's when we hit. It was about, I'd say 20 inches deep, because when we went out there last week, we hand dug it just to see where it was, and it was right on the end of the road. So we measured it all out. It is, we're within our marks. So, yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the board? No. Are there any? It looks like Charter Communications is not here for comment. Is there any other public comment? Is there anything else you want to add to that? Thank you, Frank.
Just the requested action if you're ready for it.
I'm ready for that.
Okay, staff is requesting that the board reject the claim against South Tahoe Public Utility District for losses allegedly sustained by Charter Communications.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Ryan.
I thought it did, but I'll do it again.
That was a big year last year.
How would you like to vote, Kelly?
I will vote yes.
Great. All right. Moving on to item 7, standing and ad hoc committees and liaison reports.
I missed the ops meeting. I realized that I had a long-standing conflict, but I didn't want to have to try to reschedule, so Joel very graciously was there.
Yes, and there was a lot going on with Adrian being gone too, so a lot of faces in there, which was kind of nice because it was good to hear different perspectives and see other staff's face. A lot of the beginning of it was what we saw coming through the board today. There's a few other pieces. No, because we already saw the spare pump. Yeah, everything else at the board item piece of it was discussed already. We had a presentation from Jim about the aerial leak detection program to detect moisture via chlorine from satellite imagery. So that was pretty cool to kind of see that and what's going to come from it. They're going to do some analysis as to the benefit of that, as far as how much we're kind of saving cost-wise in what we're also paying for that. And then another presentation from Mark, which was not as positive, I guess, about the arsenic levels at Bakersfield, which are worrisome and something we need to pay attention to, and hopefully we'll get an update at the next ops meeting that hopefully will be shifted a week since Kelly and I will be out. Outside of that, it was, again, nice to hear from all the different staff. They were reporting high reliability on SCADA, which was really good to hear. So there's a lot of good communication between all the systems for that. Leak detection program is working pretty efficiently. And then I talked about the Bakersfield and, yeah, some interesting discussions about use of AI to kind of assist operations and things like that in different capacities. So outside of that, that was it for ops. So yeah.
So for this remotely sent leak detection system, was like a full-blown presentation?
It was, yeah. No, it was from Jim about kind of what we've done in the past and what we're planning to do at this round and what we're planning to do in 2 years. It's a 2-year thing.
I missed my time on ops.
I'm sure we can provide the presentation. So we did a 2-year contract, so we'll do our first flyover actually next month, I think early next month. And then,
right?
Yeah, we shifted it from the fall to the spring. And then we included some boots on the ground time with the consultants, so they'll be working with Frank's crew, the underground water crew, to go out, the results from the satellite, they'll go out, and so Jim presented on that. We're also looking at purchasing some acoustic software or acoustic tools for leak detection, so they'll help us through that, maybe get some on-site training, and then we're going to do another fly either in the fall, late fall, or we'll try to push it to next spring again. We're limited with our contract term.
Yeah, I guess I would think that like fall would be probably the best time to identify leaks and maybe NDVI or like, some other signatures of leakage, I guess.
Yeah, and that's important to note is that we did include the export system in the satellite imagery for this contract. I think it's been a few years since we actually flew that area as well. So that'll be good to kind of see some results out of that as we're looking at the sea line and condition assessment and potential issues on that line.
Yep.
Maybe we'll arrange a separate presentation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I'm very interested in once the results come in, just to kind of get a run through on that. Maybe we can schedule some kind of, all right. Great, thank you, Joel. I think I was remiss in announcing at the last board meeting that Megan and others, they had a very well-attended workshop on the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. So I just wanted to basically acknowledge that, but it was very well-attended and very well presented, and so that's something that's coming forward, or if you want to say anything else about that, but we're working with Lake Valley and
yeah, we've teamed with Lake Valley Fire Protection District to do a multi-jurisdictional plan. Hopes are is that we can incorporate both of our plans into the county's plan and get back on the county cycle. We are moving forward with the project. We're kind of in the phase 3. There's a EPA framework that you have to develop these local hazard mitigation plans through. So we're in phase 3. There's 4 phases. Kind of going through the mitigation actions that were in our last plan, updating those, developing new ones based on the risk assessment that they just completed for our facilities. And then I believe, is there one more public workshop? I don't think so. No. One more hazard mitigation planning committee meeting, and then we'll do public notice meeting. Yep. Not till we get to adoption. Yeah, and there's a long review period for the EPA. I believe they have a 45-day, maybe even longer. FEMA, sorry. Got a lot of acronyms with finance going on right now in my world. And I had flew late last night, so I'm a little tired today. Please forgive me. So there's a long review period for FEMA, and once FEMA does their review, then it rolls over to Cal OES for their review. So there'll be a long review process before we come to the board for adoption of the plan, but we're targeting fall, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And we did also get grant funding from El Dorado Water Agency to help pay a portion of the cost for this plan development.
Sounds like it's moving along.
Moving along. Got a good team behind it.
WSA, like they do these things all day long.
WSP, correct.
WSP, yeah. Anyway.
They had reached out to us a few months ago saying that they're applying for additional funding through FEMA and Colorado to further excavate, and asked if we wanted to submit a letter of interest in participating, which we did, which most likely means that should they get the funding, it will cover our next update as well.
Oh, great. Cool. All right. Any other board member, or excuse me, standing ad hoc committee liaison reports from the board? No. Moving on to item 8. Board member reports, and any side things going on?
Thanks so much for juggling the schedule and the agenda for me. So great.
Yeah, I attended ECC on, was it Wednesday, yesterday? It was very well attended, delicious burrito, breakfast burritos. So, kind of give an update of like that we're going through a lot of the approval to go out for bid and get projects rolling for the dig season, and told staff to stay safe out there, and because I know it's going to be a long season with the lack of snow. And also kind of explained that the engineering manager shift of the CIP was in response to what we all said about kind of restructuring that and making it more doable workload-wise for staff capacity, as well as being within reason for our ratepayers. So, yeah, it was a good meeting, though.
Who was the employee of the month?
It was Garth.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Who pulled his fortune out that said that he was going to receive recognition soon. And, yeah, it was pretty good.
Cool. Anything else on ECC? That's quite cool. No, we're good. I don't have anything. Shelley already covered it. Yeah, I came over here at short notice and got to meet Mr. Kiley, and actually I've met him before, but anyways, it was really nice. I think maybe a bit unfortunate that I think he had invited some media as well, but it was just us that you saw in the picture that were there. So. All right, I think, is that it? Am I missing anything?
Nope.
Okay, meeting adjourned. We're gonna open up into closed session after this.